Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome back to Once Upon a Time in Texas, episode number 109. That's right, folks. There are 109 Once Upon a Time in Texas episodes out there. I really honestly didn't think I would do this long. And I think I've told y'all that I've thought about kind of hanging it up every now and then, but when I mentioned it to folks, they were like, no, man, keep going. We dig it. And so here I am, 109 episodes later, and still going strong, still finding things to talk about, and still entertaining the fives of people. I'm kidding. There are actually quite a few people that download and listen to this every month. But and I appreciate it, or every week, not every month. But yeah, I think we're getting close to like 8,000 downloads as a whole. So, I mean, the podcast here has been growing. And I guess a lot of what people like is just that it's raw. There's no video, there's no music. If I cough or hiccup or whatever, it's in here. I don't do a lot of editing. It's not a professional, per se, podcast. It's just me in the Once Upon a Time in Texas World Headquarters, which is also my kitchen. That's where the family computer is. So here I am. I am your host, Michael Mitchell. So this last weekend went down and did a cool thing. An Order of the Arrow Conclave is what we call it. So Order of the Arrow is basically the National Honor Society, because most people know what that is. It's basically the National Honor Society of the Boy Scouts of America. And it's based a lot on Native American themes and everything else. And anyway, once a year we get together with our section, which is groups out of basically all over Texas, parts of Louisiana, and then Texarkana, or that council there covers part of Arkansas, I believe. Anyway, so we cover huge parts of Texas. We even had some folks from Oklahoma that came down. It was just great. But this was held at Sid Richardson Scout Ranch, which is over near Bridgeport, Texas, right on Lake Bridgeport. It's like 2,800 acres of property that sticks up like a thumb right in the middle of Lake Bridgeport. It's gorgeous property. We were all worried. Everybody was blowing up my phone because we'd had some pretty nasty weather right before, and they were predicting some pretty nasty weather during this conclave. And to be honest, last year our conclave was held at Camp Constantine down on Possum Kingdom Lake, and it rained. And then once it was done raining, it rained some more. And then once it had finally finished, it rained a little bit more. It was awful. We were all soaked. I mean, just absolutely to the bone. It was cold. It was miserable. We still had a good time. We spent most of the time in the giant dining hall they've got, and we were not looking forward to another weekend like that. And we didn't have that. I finally just told everybody, look, we're going. They haven't called it, so we're going. And so we saddled up, packed up, and headed down there. And it was a beautiful weekend. Now, people within 40 miles of us got some pretty wicked weather, but all the weather missed us by 40 miles. We were roughly, 100 or so miles as the crow flies from Lawton, Oklahoma, which got enormous amounts of rain, had flooding and had to do water rescues and all that kind of stuff. We didn't have a drop. Matter of fact, it was cloudy most of Saturday, so it wasn't too hot. It was humid. It was really humid. But we didn't get a drop of rain. The dew wasn't heavy. I mean, as a matter of fact, Sunday morning when we went to pack up our tents, there was some dew on our tents, and it was all dried by, 9 o'clock. And so we packed up while the youth were still up doing, their voting for next year's leadership for Section Conclave. And we packed up our tents and everything, and it was great. Just an absolute amazing weekend. Loved it. About the only other great news I've got going on. Had a great talk with a friend of mine yesterday who's a city councilor, Michael Battolino. And we laughed because he actually brought up, he said, it feels weird that we're not having city council tomorrow. And I said, what? Why aren't we having city council? Like, I'm going. And he said, no, man, there's 5 Tuesdays in April, and we only have city council on the 1st and 3rd. So I'm glad he said that. Otherwise, my happy butt would have packed up and gone down there and been waiting at the MPEC, wondering where the heck everybody was. So, other news, though, that's going on, my kiddos, number 2, Shanna, and number 3, Raylan, are both Life Scouts, even though they're currently about 3.5 years apart in age. But Raylan was kind of fast-tracked because he participates in both his troop, which is Troop 1, but then also there's a lot of times we can't just really leave him at home. And so he ends up going with us camping on, weekends with Troop 2. And he's also done a whole bunch of summer camps. Anyway, long and the short of it is he is stuck with his sisters and us a lot. And so he is basically doing double the amount of scouting that a normal scout would. And he loves it and we have a good time with it. But anyway, Raylan, who's almost 13, and Shanna, who just turned 16, are both doing their Eagle Scout project proposals on May 8th. And so we'll see how that goes. And if they both get approved, then I'll let you know what those projects are going to be. Both of them are big deals. Kind of bigger than I thought that they would go after. But they both chose them, and one of them is going to be just amazing for youth, and then the other one is going to be an amazing destination spot for Wichita Falls and Texas. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on in my life. Now let's move on to the podcast. So I've spoken many times about place names, wondering where they got those names, who it was named after. And this time I want to explore 2 that I got to experience this last weekend when I went down for this Order of the Arrow Conclave. So before we jump into this, I want to thank our sponsors as always, me and Victory Home Loans. I know there are tons of people moving to and in Texas and Oklahoma, and I know a lot of y'all know these people too. So let me help them out. As an independent mortgage loan originator, I think right now we've got 39 different companies we can shop. So we kind of go out and do the shopping for you. We find the best rates, which I know everybody goes, oh man, rates aren't that great. And you're right, they're not. They've been staying higher than we're used to. But you know what? It's okay. I've been putting out some pretty dang good rates here lately for folks. And so I'd love to help them out. Like I said, I'm licensed in Texas and Oklahoma. I've got all these lenders that I can shop. So I can do your regular, conventional FHA, USDA, VA. I can do all those types of loans. We can also do land, manufactured homes, reverse mortgages, refinances. I mean, if it has to do with lending, and I can do commercial property too. If it has to do with lending, as long as you've got the credit and the money, remember, I don't make the rules. We just have to follow them. But as long as you're within the scope of the rules and you've got the money and stuff to do it, let's go. Why not work with somebody that's faster, cheaper, and easier than working with the big bank? Somebody like me. So if you know someone moving to or in Texas or Oklahoma or needs a little help, send them my way. TheMichaelMitchell.com, THE MichaelMitchell.com. Let me help them out. Remember, when you work with me, I sell dreams, not mortgages. So where'd this week's idea come from? Well, I mean, the OA Conclave, obviously. That's what I was already talking about. And so we're going to hit on both of these places. So we actually drove through a town called Wizard Wells. That's right, Wizard, as in you shall not pass, kind of, wizard, and then wells, like a water well, right? So it was on the way to our camp out this weekend, and everyone in the vehicles kind of laughed and talked about it and thought, well, that's a weird name. I, of course, being the guy that I am with the podcast with the world headquarters in my kitchen, went, well, how did that come to be named? And of course, the search was on. So I actually found the most information on WFAA.com, which is a news station. And this is what their article says about Wizard Wells, Texas. Most Texans have heard about mineral wells and its crazy water with healing powers. But how many know about the magic bubbling in the waters of Wizard Wells? Evidenced by the lack of traffic and the very narrow road, I might add. I pretty much had to drive down the middle of the road because our trailer's so wide. And it was a tiny road. So anyway, basically not many people know about it. In the mid-1800s, Wizard Wells was actually known as Vineyard. Not because there was wine, but because the man who first settled there was George Washington Vineyard. In the mid-1800s, well, hang on. Shoot, I goofed up. If Vineyard wanted to survive, George Washington Vineyard, he was going to need water. And when he found a natural spring running underneath his property, he had hit the jackpot. He was thrilled. Of course, so he thought. Unfortunately, the water smelled and tasted too disgusting to drink, but that didn't stop from bathing in it, and Mr. Vineyard bathed in it a lot. Sounds like a good idea. So, unfortunately, like I said, it was disgusting, too disgusting to drink, but Mr. Vineyard himself had body sores, said a local historian. And when he came up here and got into this water, it kind of cured his sores, and he began to tell people about it, which, of course, everybody was looking for a miracle cure back then. Suddenly, everyone wanted to dip their toes, literally, into this magical water. They came on foot, in wagons, and were sometimes carried here on stretchers, all hoping for a miracle. Pretty soon, the town had a school, a newspaper, and at least 3 different bathhouses, one of which actually remains open today. The historian said we had a doctor that came out with her grandfather when she was a little girl. I'm sorry, it wasn't the historian, said Kevin Leach, owner of Center of Divine Light, which now occupies the town's original bathhouse. She had Lyme disease and had sores, so she started soaking 2 or 3 times a week, and within 2 or 3 months, her sores were all healed. There's some magic to it, and I think that's the beauty of the magic. However, the town would still be called Vineyard if it wasn't for, of course, the railroad. So even though Vineyard was practically a tourist destination at this point, for some reason the railroad decided to build a new train stop 2 miles away. They were going from Bridgeport to Jacksboro, I believe. It's probably just the way the surveyor did it. So anyway, everyone that once moved here moved there because, everyone knows that to be a successful town, you have to be on the rail line. So since the entire town moved down the road, the state of Texas allowed the name Vineyard to go with them. That meant this old vineyard needed a new name, and because there was clearly magic in the water, they named it Wizard Wells. Sounds cool. Today, very few people visit Wizard Wells, but there may still be enough magic in the water to cure what ails you. So there is a historical marker in town that reads, the Kiowa Indians first visited this location and used the mineral waters for medical purposes. Who knows if they did or didn't, but it sure sounds good, right? George Washington Vineyard settled here in the 1870s, taking up a claim originally established by David Rowland. Vineyard dug his well for his home, but the mineral-tasting water was not used. He suffered from sore eyes and from ulcers on his legs, but was cured by bathing in and drinking the water. The news spread, and visitors suffering from arthritis, rheumatism, stomach disorders, and skin diseases began coming to the well. Those seeking treatments often camped along Beans Creek in their wagons. Soon, 3 hotels and several bathhouses opened to serve the increased visitor population. The town of Vineyard was laid out in 1882, and J. H. Grissom opened the very first general store. The town later included several churches, a newspaper, school, sawmill, blacksmith shop, and post office. In 1898, the Rock Island Railway bypassed Vineyard, and Seabree community was started just 2 miles south. Seabree being Sebree. Visitors arriving by train took a hack to the resort. H.F. Stamper and his sons, Clint and H.F. Jr., petitioned the legislature in 1915, and the name of Vineyard became Wizard Wells. Seabree was changed to Vineyard at that time. Of note, the new town of Vineyard didn't make it long. In 1925, it had a population of 212 people and was considered thriving with a brick schoolhouse and 3 businesses. None of those businesses or the schoolhouse existed by the 1970s. In the 1950s, the population was down to 40 and remained that way through the 1990s. In the 2000 census, they were down to 37 and just 19 people in 2015. Maybe they should have stayed in Wizard Wells instead of moving to Seabree/New Vineyard. I don't know. Time will tell, I guess, or time has told, I guess. So this next guy is someone I only knew through his name. Not really what he did or how he became the dude, you know. I had heard of Sid Richardson Scout Ranch many times when I worked for the Boy Scouts for 13 years. I'd never camped there as a youth or as an adult until this last weekend. It is a beautiful 2,800 acre camp right on Lake Bridgeport. As with most scout camps, it's a little older and rustic, but beautiful nonetheless. All scout camps, it seems like, need a little bit of help, need a little bit of fixing up, right? But then it got me thinking, who is this Sid Richardson guy? A look at one of my favorite websites, tshaonline.org, was awesome as always. So we're going to hear a little bit about Sid Richardson. All right, Sid Williams Richardson, oil man, was born on April 25th, 1891 in Athens, Texas. The son of John Isidore and Nancy Bradley Richardson. He earned $3,500 in 1908 by cattle trading while still a senior in high school. That's pretty good in 1908 and being a senior in high school. He attended Baylor University and Simmons College for about 18 months, then quit to become a salesman for an oil well supply company, an oil scout, and a lease purchaser. Although he remained interested in the cattle business and ranching, his main concern from then on was the oil industry. He became an independent oil producer in Fort Worth in 1919. So let's see, in 1908, he was a senior in high school. So this is 9 years later. So this puts him at like 27, 28 years old. His finances fluctuated widely, and he accumulated wealth and lost it several times during the 1920s. He was well established as a millionaire by 1935 when he opened up the rich Keystone oil field in Winkler County. From his suite of offices in Fort Worth, he individually leased more oil land than did several other major oil companies. He operated 3 cattle ranches and owned the Texas State Network, a radio and television organization, a carbon black plant at Odessa, and the Texas City Refining Company. He purchased St. Joseph's Island off the Texas coast in 1936 and resided there when he wasn't in Fort Worth. I believe St. Joseph Island is now called San Jose Island or St. Jose. I'm not sure, but I had a little difficulty finding that one. In 1954, with his longtime friend Clinton Williams Murchison, He backed fellow Texan Robert Ralph Young in a successful fight for control of the New York Central Railroad by buying 800,000 shares worth $20 million. Holy smokes. $20 million in 1954 would, well, hell, that's a lot of money today, but that was a whole lot of money back then. The public seldom knew of Richardson's business activities, and few knew what he looked like. He rarely talked to reporters, and he did not like publicity at all, which is why it was kind of hard to find stuff on him. In politics, he was a confidant of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, whom he advised at times during World War II about oil affairs. In 1952, he helped persuade his Republican friend, General Dwight D. Eisenhower, to run for president. In 1956, however, he returned to the Democrats after the president vetoed a natural gas bill. Though he never publicized his gifts, Richardson made large contributions to civic groups, churches, libraries, and especially to Boys Incorporated, a California charitable organization. Boys Incorporated. On July 7, 1947, he established the Sid Richardson Foundation, designed to aid churches, hospitals, and schools in Texas. Richardson was considered one of the wealthiest men in the nation at the time. Some estimates of his worth ranged up to $800 million, and he was often referred to as the Bachelor Billionaire. He died apparently of a heart attack on September 30th, 1959 at his St. Joseph's Island ranch home. He was buried at Athens, Texas, and many dignitaries attended the funeral, including Lyndon B. Johnson, Samuel T. Sam Rayburn, and evangelist Billy Graham, who actually conducted the services. The Richardson Foundation presented to the University of Texas at Austin a $2 million gift to increase the holdings of its History of Science collection, housed in the Harry Ransom Humanities Research Center. In appreciation, the university named the new building, adjacent to the Lyndon Baines Johnson Library, after Sid Richardson. The building on the campus of the university consists of 5 levels and was dedicated on January 21st, 1971. Sid Richardson Hall currently houses the Research and Collections Division of the Dolph Briscoe Center for American History, the Teresa Lozano Long Institute for Latin American Studies, the Nettie Lee Benson Latin American Collection, and the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs. I've always joked myself when I grow up, I want to be an independently wealthy philanthropist. Well, Sid Richardson lived it and was a huge philanthropist. It's not just a scout camp that bears his name, but there are some others. The Sid Richardson Auditorium of the Amon Carter Museum in Fort Worth, Sid Richardson Museum in Fort Worth, housing Sid Richardson's extensive collection of Western art featuring works by Remington and Russell, Sid Richardson College, one of 11 residential colleges at Rice University in Houston, Sid W. Richardson Physical Sciences Building at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. Of course, Sid Richardson Scout Ranch. Sid Richardson Hall, an academic building at the University of Texas Austin, which houses the LBJ School of Public Affairs and, of course, many other things. The Sid Richardson Building at Baylor University in Waco. Sid Richardson Recreation Center at Austin College in Sherman. The Sid Richardson Building at Texas Wesleyan University. Sid W. Richardson Visual Arts Center, Fort Worth County Day School. Fort Worth Country Day School, which was completed in 2009. The Sid Richardson Science Center at Hardin-Simmons University. Sid Richardson Hall, a former residential hall at Howard Payne University in Brownwood. Sid Richardson Gallery at Texas Southmost College. Sid Richardson Gymnasium at Fort Worth Country Day School. The Sid Richardson Tower at the Texas Health Harris Methodist Hospital, Fort Worth, in the Fort Worth Hospital District. Geez, that's hard to say. And the last one is the Sid W. Richardson Communication Center at Trinity University in San Antonio. So, one thing I'd like to note is that the Sid Richardson Foundation, which he created, continues to do good work long after his death. In 2020, it was reported that they had assets of $716.8 million. The foundation focuses on public-private partnerships in the areas of education, health, human services, and arts, to which it has donated over $545 million since 1962. The charter of the foundation did stipulate that recipients must be in the state of Texas. So the money doesn't go anywhere but here in Texas. What an amazing individual, y'all. I mean, seriously. I can't find that he was ever married or had children of his own. I mean, obviously they called him the billionaire bachelor. There's really not a whole lot else about his personal life. He did leave considerable wealth to his nephew, Perry Richardson Bass, whose sons today continued to build upon his wealth through various investments. And they also continue to do good work through philanthropic endeavors. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, you make so much money and then basically you leave it for the good of the people and it continues to do good long after you've passed. Have you ever thought about what your legacy would be? I mean, I have. Do you aspire to leave a great wealth to family or maybe through a foundation? I mean, I've kind of done that too. I personally give freely of my time. Money is great, I suppose. I've never had enough to consider myself, ooh, look at me, wealthy. And I'm certainly not a billionaire bachelor. Of course, I'm married, but I mean, the billionaire part, has eluded me thus far. So, like I said, money is great, I guess, but I've always found that working with youth, basically the next generation, and giving of your time can mean exponentially more than money. And it's not just youth. I mean, working with veterans, basically anybody who needs help, but really youth is our next generation. They're the ones that are going to take over after us. I mean, that's the nature of the business, right? And so I spend a lot of time and a lot of my money working with youth, especially through Scouts. And so, giving of your time can mean exponentially more than money ever does. And so if you guys get anything out of this podcast, let it be, go out and give freely. If you have money, find a nonprofit or an organization that does good things that you personally align with and give money. If you don't have money, go give time. You can volunteer. I just had a very good conversation yesterday with my friend Jean Hall, who's a fellow Rotarian, but she is also the executive director for Big Brothers Big Sisters right here in Wichita Falls. And she does great work. I mean, the stuff that she does and just putting a mentor in a kid's life. Because not every kid has the opportunity to come join Scouting, which is unfortunate. But some kids don't have the time or the resources or whatever they may be. I mean, I am all in on Scouting. Gene is all in on Big Brothers Big Sisters. And there are just tons of organizations around. Go find something and go do something. And, I just found out that I'm taking over as president of the Memorial Band Parents Association. Supposed to be. I've been nominated and I will be voted on in May. But, part of that comes from, and I know I give them a hard time. I mean, I do have people in my life that I think a lot of, and two that I want to mention right here, right now. I mean, Michael Kurtz is a friend of mine. I know he listens to the podcast, but he gives very freely of his time as a veteran, and his wife is a veteran, but they give very freely of their time, not only to the American Legion, post 169 specifically, but just the American Legion as a whole, but they help other veterans in all kinds of different ways. Another guy similar to Mr. Kurtz is a guy named Roger Reeves, who has moved here to Wichita Falls, gotten very active with veterans and veteran services. But the American Legion has done a great job in sponsoring and supporting our female Boy Scout troop that we have. And just the partnership has been amazing. But then the other guy that I'll mention on here is Michael Battolino, and I know he's been mentioned several times, and he's probably smiling or laughing now. But this guy, he does everything. He's kind of everywhere all the time, but he is a city councilor here, and I'm not sucking up to the guy. I do consider him a good friend, and I love watching what he does and the good things that he does for our city. But he has sucked me into some things because he's got this great saying that he picked up from somebody else, and for the life of me, I don't remember what it was. But basically, the saying is, if not me, then who? And basically, the idea stems from... he had told me the story. I think it was a veteran who'd served a tour of duty and basically volunteered to go back. And his family asked him, why on earth would you go back? And he basically said, if I don't go back, who's going to do it? We've got to go finish the job. We've got to be there, So if not me, then who? And so I love watching Michael and what he's doing. And the great things he's doing for our city, our county, our state, and for all the people who live here. So, like I said, I leave that with you guys listening to this podcast. If not me, then who? Get your asses out there. Go do something good for your community, for a local nonprofit, and it can be anything. It can be anything that inspires you. It doesn't have to be youth. It could be veterans. It could be cats and dogs. It just go do something, because that's what makes the world go round. And so I'll leave you with this, and I'll kind of end it. So Oklahoma Oil Man and the guy who donated Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico, which is the largest youth camp in the world, said one time, the only things you keep permanently are those you give away. So whether it's time or money, sometimes it's just listening to a friend. Sometimes you just got to listen to somebody. Let them unload a little bit. The only things you keep permanently are those you give away. And if not me, then who? I think those are some great quotes. I choose to give freely of my time for the betterment of others. And basically do my best to make the world a better place at every chance, just for being in it. So there you go. Go out and do the good things. If not me, then who? And the only things you keep permanently are those you give away. Go do good things. So there you go. Sid Richardson and Wizard Wells, Texas. What do y'all think? Let me know what other weird, off the wall, or interesting Texas history you'd like to hear about. I want to thank our sponsors again. Of course, me and Victory Home Loans. Without doing the home loan stuff, folks, if you're not sending them my way, I can't keep doing the podcast. It is how I make a little bit of my income. So send people my way. Kick them over to themichaelmitchell.com, TheMichaelMitchell.com. Let me help them out. If their credit sucks, great. I'll help them out. I'll put them in touch with my credit guy, and we'll get them fixed up. I'm actually working on a couple loans right now that I helped get their credit up to where they could buy a home. I love helping people out no matter what the situation is, and I'll sure help your friends and family that are looking to buy a house, refinance a house, do a reverse mortgage, whatever the case may be. TheMichaelMitchell.com. Thank you all for tuning in to Once Upon a Time in Texas. As always, remember, the stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. Y'all go out and do great things, and have a great week.